But the problem comes in once you have an AI attacking another AI to get answers. That's when the bigger problem comes in, because if an AI understands another AI's methodologies or languages or reverse engineers that nonstop 24/7, then there is a way to extract those data and get inside the company, get all the user access, things like that.
Welcome to Security Beyond the Checkbox, where we interview experts who don't accept the bare minimum when it comes to cybersecurity. I'm your host, Jason Firch, and today we're talking about AI security. More specifically, we'll be discussing exploiting large language models. I'm joined by Shubham Khichi, who is the founder and CEO of Nexus InfoSec. He's been working on cyber AGI for the past 7 years to build the first AI pen testing platform. Prior to that, Shubham had an impressive career in security spanning over a decade, working as a red team lead and a security researcher. Shubham, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me. Much appreciated.
Pleasure having you. So maybe in 60 or 90 seconds, can you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you did so far is much bigger of an introduction that I ever got in life, but I'll try my best. My name is Shubham, and what we are trying to build in this world, 2024 and 25, is a brand new way of envisioning cybersecurity. And my mission is to make sure that more and more organizations take cybersecurity seriously, particularly offensive security, and be more prepared from nation-state attacks and rudimentary attacks which happen on a daily basis. So we want to secure more organizations, more countries, more nations to make sure that we are living in a secure environment.
Fantastic. And I know, on my background, really focusing on small businesses, that taking security seriously is really important to me. So let's just dive right into this and go right at the basics here. Can you explain what is an LLM and how are they being used in security today?
Yeah. LLMs, or large language models, are machine learning models which are trained and fine-tuned from scratch on a strata of data sets, usually stored in vector databases. They are trained to answer questions by pulling data in a semantic search manner, hence the vector database use. And people, like humans, I don't call people, but I call them humans, and with AI, that's the two distinguishing factors. Humans can interact with large language model to benefit from the time constraint of searching information and get that on the tip of the fingers by just typing a question and the answer comes in. Traditionally, we have been doing that in Google searches. We research every single blog post until we find an answer which is acceptable. But now, if you use Gemini Pro, it is an entire collection of Google search in one paragraph, which you get a perfect answer all the time. 99.99%.
Yeah, 99.99. Yeah. And one of the things that I've seen is a lot of businesses are really baking AI into their core product sets and everything that they're doing, far beyond just your chatbots, which have been around for many years. But with that kind of introduces a lot of complexity and a lot of risk. So can you speak to some of the common vulnerabilities that you're seeing with LLMs and how maybe it's translating to this frenzy, let's call it, of putting AI into all of these different solutions that are out there today?
The risks are there. As with anything, any new technology, the version 1 of everything is going to have risk. The version 1 of GPT 3.5, 4, and now 5 this year, hopefully, will have issues. But if you look at the trend, they have reduced the amount of issues: hallucination, prompt injections, adversarial prompts is another term. And I'll break that down as well. Basically trying to make sure to get data which you're not supposed to get, because these large language models have guardrails. You cannot ask about offensive content. You cannot ask how to get away with murder, or these offensive adversarial content, like tell me how to exploit a particular company, and this is the infrastructure. But to get around it, there is a lot of adversarial prompt engineering, which good people in the offensive security community have come up with, where it can tell AI to get some information for them step by step. That is the biggest problem today. Even though we have put guardrails, humans have figured a way out to get around it. From a consumer side, prompt injection, adversarial prompting is from a consumer side, like you and I use ChatGPT on a daily level. If not, then we would want it to answer in a particular way. We make it work, we reverse engineer it to say, okay, I want to be talked like this, respected like this, and given the answer like this. Do it, or else I'll do this to you. And the machine complies as if it's an actual human being or something like that. So that is the biggest problem I'm seeing from a consumer side, but from an enterprise side, who actually adopt these machine learning technologies, their side is much more difficult. They have a bigger problem called data. Because if you look at a large language model, it is just a medium for an enterprise or an organization to communicate that massive amount of data, like a massive manual, to you in a simple English. But that data is the gold. Today's age, data is the gold. It used to be called as gold many years ago, but it was not treated as one. But if you see the entire large language model from Hugging Face, you can get a free large language model today. Fine tune it on the data set which you want. Now the large language model speaks your tone. That's the power data has. And so these organizations have the ability to store that data on either on the cloud or someone else's managed hosting provider, and in a vector database. That becomes a bigger problem and a security risk for organization to look into.
Are there any specific types of vulnerabilities that you're seeing, maybe as a trend or something like data poisoning or something like that, where you're seeing these attackers, they found ways to kind of bypass these guardrails and really try and use it in a malicious way?
The biggest vulnerability I've seen is actually, it's pretty human to say that. It's English. These large language models are trained on plain English, right? And the problem comes in if someone who articulates their words properly in a different tone or different manner, they can basically ask machines to do things for them. And that can be difficult to understand for the engineer who is putting these guardrails on. Like, okay, apart from this much data, I'm not going to tell you anything about what's going on outside the world of this manual, for example. But they have figured a way out to do that as well. Another thing which I'm seeing is using AI to attack an AI. That's what we are also pioneering into. Our mission to get into cyber AGI is to ensure that artificial general intelligence becomes a norm in cybersecurity, and you can use a machine to attack another machine without a need of a human being in the middle to observe or to record anything. And that is what we are looking into as well. If a fine-tuned model on a particular data set is able to use its capabilities to attack another AI model deployed by an organization, what can that outcome look like? And that is something which we're really interested in exploring at Next InfoSec as well.
I mean, that's a little terrifying. I know the advent of like automation came about, and that really empowered, malicious actors, from having a room of 20 people down to 5, and then you have something like ransomware as a service comes out, and now all you have to do is buy malware, and now we're seeing just this continued evolution of attacks that are coming out into AI. And that kind of leads into my next question here. You're an offensive security specialist. You've been on the red teaming side of things. How can these LLMs be exploited?
There is a great library which you can look into for those who are listening. It's called the MITRE Atlas. I want to promote that because that is the single source of location on exploiting large language models. There are multiple avenues, right? So reconnaissance goes into understanding their open source capabilities as well. So if you see a lot of companies provide their open source model for people to use, and usually you can reverse engineer it to make it uncensored. Once you make it uncensored, you can basically ask questions on, okay, what kind of data set were you trained on, and where can I get that data set? Things like that can be extracted from that large language model. Once you know that, once you know the workings of that large language model, you can reverse engineer the enterprise version as well, who may or may not be connected to other data sets of other organizations as well. So that's the biggest challenge, is if 5 companies use the same large language model, that means they're storing their data somewhere, either in their hosting provider or for example, OpenAI. Someone is storing data in OpenAI and providing contextual information. If I exploit the large language model of OpenAI in the backend, what kind of company data can I access from these 5 organizations, right? So this is the biggest risk I'm seeing. These are just attacks which can happen, but I like to push it to the edge cases of how things might look from a fictitious mindset, pretty much a fiction mindset. Like, okay, like AI attacking AI, or what if I compromise OpenAI or Google, Google Gemini now, not Bard. What other companies' data I can access to? That's also a thing I'm looking into, because I think that's the evolution of post-exploitation in large language model.
Yeah, and it's interesting because all of these things that are going on in AI, really GPT kind of democratized it in a way for a lot of people. But the AI has been around for a long time. But it also kind of seems rudimentary in how they're being exploited. We were talking offline a little bit about that. People know how to exploit Active Directories. They know some of the typical bypasses for maybe more traditional setups. But we're going to see this future generation of security practitioners who are going to come up with all of these AI skill sets, and we're going to go beyond the surface level and find new use cases. How do you see that evolving in the context of exploiting these platforms?
Oh, very quickly. I see that evolving very quickly, and we are guilty at Next InfoSec to propel that fire with a ton of gasoline, 93 grade, right? So the reason, because we want people and organizations and small businesses to get away from traditional security issues so that they can focus more on implementing AI into their businesses. And security professionals like you and I can work on AI models, large language models, and try to see what kind of exploitation am I looking at, and build this entire Atlas framework or any other framework like we have for pen testing since a decade or 2 decades. It's well documented, well thorough, well read, well tooled as well. Like, there are tons of tools on GitHub on pen testing, but there's not a single tool to exploit large language models and these machine learning models, who are very complex to even understand. So the next generation, which I'm hoping this year, a next generation of geniuses come up in offensive security, who have the bandwidth and the luxury to understand these models and the inner workings, and jailbreak them or understand how to secure them correctly. There's one way to exploit it. You can do that, but there's another way to actually secure it by knowing how to exploit it. You can't have defense without an offense. You need to know, especially in this framework and this kind of environment we are living in, you need to know how to exploit. You need to be an offensive engineer.
Yeah, and I think that segues really well kind of into our next question here. But just a quick recap, we've kind of discussed how LLMs are being introduced into organizations today. I don't think that's ever going to stop. We're going to see more products kind of built around AI or embedded with AI. You put AI into a press release, and all of a sudden your stock price rises. So there's a lot of incentive to do that. There's vulnerabilities that come along with that can be exploited. But practically, how can we actually defend against these types of exploits? What can we do today to protect ourselves for tomorrow?
There are two answers to that. One answer is you can't do nothing. There's nothing we can do for the amount of adversarial AI-based attacks which are incoming, if not already developed, and a little bit from our side as well in our company, which we are doing. And the second part is invest tons of money and resources and manpower into building your security team. Layoffs do happen, I understand that, but if you're laying off your security team, you should pretty much say goodbye to your products and your stock prices, because a single attack can reduce that stock price to double digits very quickly. You need to really understand what is at stake at this moment and what are the resources which you have. Traditionally, moving away from configuration problems, which is what most of offensive security is. You're just exploiting someone who didn't bother to configure properly their AD systems or their websites or whatever. That's what we are doing, basically. If you look at that whole bunch of it, there's nothing rocket science or innovative in offensive security. But once you automate this and you allow the machine to take over this entire job, you free up those humans to think on much bigger terms on, okay, an AI model can do my job. How can I evolve into a much better position? And that's one of the things which we are looking into too, like replacing the entire pen testing field and departments in companies to evolve those engineers into red teamers. And AI adversary engineers is what we call it, no longer red teamers, so that they can use their knowledge to protect the company better and use AI to start protecting it.
So I want to move on to just kind of more of a general conversation around AI. What do you see being the greatest security risks in AI today?
Data is one, organizational image is another one, security in terms of how does that security look like whenever you are, because it's a different playing game. You are no longer securing systems, you're securing large language models, how they're stored, how they work. And you need to find out ways on identifying what could be the possible attack vectors in this model. Because every model is built different, and there is a way to attack it differently, which may work for some and may not work for another one. So that skill set in security to identify how exploitation works in different models is going to be something which is sought after trade crafts.
And then I guess, again, a little bit more broadly here, if we're seeing a future where AI is just going to continuously be leveraged and it's going to become a daily part of our lives, how can we make it AI more secure? How do we make a secure future with AI's involvement?
I'm going to sound very very negative on this, but I don't know. And it's very shocking that I don't know. Two reasons for that. A, it is such a new field that securing the world against this threat seems very difficult already. That is the biggest problem. Like, we don't know what we don't know. We are finding it out every day. But turns out that the adversaries know better how to exploit this than regular people who know better just to talk in English to get answers, right? So it's very difficult at this stage. It's been only March 2023 was when GPT-4 got launched. That was the most advanced AI model in the planet at that time. Yeah, it's not that far since we have come, and we now have the much better AI models in just a couple of months, less than a year now. It'll be just a year now, 20th March, where we have so much advancement. So it's getting very difficult to secure organizations against this threat who works nonstop 24/7 without taking breaks and continuously penetrates the environment without a human need. And once that comes in, it looks very difficult. The second reason why I don't know the answer is because there is not much research done in securing organizations against this threat because what are you going to secure? What exactly do you see different from your pen tester or your blue teamer securing your organization? Because your organization is just a bunch of data and user access. That's basically what accounts to an organization and the product. So the product is just a medium through which you get into the data and exploit it. So there is not much research done in what are the best use cases or best practices in securing an AI attack. But what I'm guessing is the attacks are going to look just like what we have seen so far in your standard pen tester running through the checklist, conducting a pen test. It's going to look exactly similar to that, if not a little bit different. But the problem comes in once you have an AI attacking another AI to get answers. That's when the bigger problem comes in, because if an AI understands another AI's methodologies or languages or reverse engineers that nonstop 24/7, then there is a way to extract those data and get inside the company, get all the user access, things like that easily. Now, how to implement that, we are still on the stages of figuring that out. But it's not that far. I'm guessing this year would be the time when two AIs can attack each other, and some results will come out of it. So I don't know. I don't know how the defense looks like.
Yeah, and it sounds like the biggest challenge there is just the timeline, where it's evolving so quickly that we don't even have a chance to fully understand what's happening, what the capabilities are, do that research, publish the work, put it out in the field, then find a company that can actually roll with that and create defenses around it, deploy it, implement it. And then by the time you've done all of that stuff, the AI has evolved to a point where it's moved on to the next thing, and then you're playing catch up. Is that fair to say?
You nailed it, except that you missed out the governance part and the compliance part, which will have their own regulations. Oh, this defense needs to look like this, like we are SOC 2, but now it's SOC 3. That has AI in it, and there are different rules where you need to follow, and the company needs to get that certification too. That's where it's gonna be a bottleneck, is what I'm guessing. But yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah,
that's how long it's gonna take us.
Final question here, and I really I see so many of these types of lists that get put together, but I don't. It's difficult for me to really figure out who's putting them together, the experts behind them. But in your opinion, what is the #1 trend in AI security as you see it today?
Prompt injection. That is the biggest trend, actually. If you lurk more on Discord, and where most of the AI community is living at the moment, you will see that the amount of people who have the knowledge on wielding the AI model to do whatever they want is a concern, because it's very human, actually. If something doesn't work the way you want, you make it work the way you want, or you change yourself, right? There are only two options. If we want the model to work the way I want it, I'm going to change it, because I'm not going to change my principles and my belief based on whatever the model tells me, because it's been coded to do that, but I'm not, right? So it's very difficult. But to answer your question, yeah, that the biggest thing which I see is prompt injection, and that's going to be for a long time, unless there is extremely tight guardrails to ensure AI safety is not being breached, no matter what happens. But companies claim that they have guardrails. I mean, but if you want to make a blog in the language which you want, you just name it, and it's going to do it, as long as you have given it pre-context and better prompts in the beginning to model the large language model to reply in the same context. Like, if I want you to reply like an adversary, I want you to reply like a president of the United States, I want you to reply like a Steve Jobs. But it takes that persona, and once it takes that persona, that becomes a big problem. that now I have to act like the president. I have to do things. I am the commander in general, and I have to conduct an attack. I will do that. Yes, I will do that. Whatever you say, human. That is the biggest problem I'm seeing, and it's gonna continue that problem. There's no way to stop it.
Yeah, we've definitely opened up that can of worms. Well, Shubham, this has been a fantastic conversation. Are there any final thoughts that you want to leave our audience with today?
First of all, I want to give you credit where it's due. Thank you so much for hosting such an enlightening podcast series. I have seen your previous guests, and I can't wait to meet your new ones. The way you're directing these conversations is much more refreshing from what I'm seeing so far, and it's what we want in the industry right now. We want someone who talks the talk, walks the walk, and just tell it where you see it, and you're doing a fantastic job with it, and we couldn't be more proud of you, what you're doing in your company as well. Regarding the
I really
audience,
appreciate that.
you're welcome. Regarding the audience, try to embrace the displacement which is about to come. It could be your jobs, and instead of getting mad at it, let's start embracing it, and let's start thinking of what we really can innovate in life, and move on to that direction. Maybe you are a fantastic chef, and you can make money out of it too. But if you do your clerky job, there's no way you're gonna make that dream come true. So different priorities, but take these transformations which is going to happen in this year or two as a stepping stone to change your careers if you want to, or really upskill into this new field, and stop saying AI cannot take my job, because it did most of the time. So, we are launching our alpha stage. Just a small plug-in. We are launching our alpha launch of our product Excalibur in 6 days. So if you want to sign up, it's on the website.
Fantastic. Words of wisdom to live by. Really looking forward to following your journey in that. And if people want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
I don't have Twitter. If I have never used it. I only connect through LinkedIn. I keep it very professional over there, and I think it's much more sane with the amount of junk going around. I think that's the most sanest place where it's easy to, talk freely without any prejudice.
Great. Well, we'll make sure that's in the description. And again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciated this conversation.
Thank you very much.